Case study number 2. Let's look at one class, namely the ArrayList from the so-called Java collection library. And all the classes in such library for collection is really, literally speaking, for you to store a collection of objects in order for your manipulation for your application. And ArrayList is actually quite a straightforward class to learn about, given that you already know how to manipulate the primitive arrays that we spoke about in the previous tutorial videos. So let me give you one line summary over here. You can think about an array list acts like a resizable array. Indices will start at 0, just like a normal primitive arrays that we spoke about, the square brackets notation. When I say resizable, it simply means when we actually did the exercises for of programming on the primitive array, we always have to give some initial size for the primitive array in the bracket notation. And then we said that normally you don't really want to change the size of the array because it's very inefficient. At the second year, in the subsequent courses for the programming, you will learn about how to do this more efficiently. However, for now, we'll simply understand that when you use the ArrayList class from the Java library, you do not have to resize the array. And also, you do not have to commit to the initial size of the array list either. Okay, it will simply just dynamically resize the array if necessary, but that's all done automatically behind the scene. You don't need to worry about it. Okay, all you got to focus on will be how to insert elements into a particular position in the list, or how to remove element from the particular position of the list, or to get access to some position of the list, right? So you can access, insert, and also delete. So these are the operations we will explore quickly in some example. There are 2 links I would like to draw your attention to. Number 1, if you click on the ArrayList over here, it's going to bring the API webpage for the ArrayList. Let me put it here. Okay, let me just go over very quickly with you. So you can see it's from the Java utility package, and for the hash table class that we're going to talk about in the next video, it's also from the same package. Okay, and then class ArrayList. And pay attention to this particular notation over here. You can see we got less than, and also we got greater than, or you can think about it's like an angle brackets. That's how we phrase it. So you got angle brackets, and then inside you got capital E. So this is something called generic parameter, which we, for the purpose of this course, we only showed you how you can use it, and also to get some intuition about using it. The theory behind that will require some systematic introduction to Java inheritance, typecasting, and also instance of operations, and also a little bit about software design principle, which will be way beyond the level of difficulty for this course at the moment. But later on, most likely in your 2030 advanced object-oriented programming course, you will learn about the generics a little bit more. Generic parameter. But for this, for the purpose of this lecture, I'll just give you some intuition that all you need to know. All right, so that's ArrayList. You can look at other links over here. I'll let you explore that. Okay, so ArrayList, and then you can see resizable array implementation, right? Resizable. So behind the scene, maybe the ArrayList is also using some array, but they will just resize the underlying array automatically, so you don't need to worry about. All you gotta know would be what methods you can actually call in on some context objects of type ArrayList. Okay, if you scroll down over here, so you can see we got constructor summary. So you got overloaded versions of constructor. So you can see either you can use this one. This is very common. You can simply just initialize some empty list with an initial capacity of 10. What that means is once you store 10 objects into the list, it's going to resize automatically when the 11th element is necessary. But you don't need to worry about the resizing process. It's completely done automatically for you. Okay, so we're gonna explore basically just this one here, ArrayList, and this one here is simply means you can initialize some ArrayList from other collection, which might be a little bit more advanced, so we don't really do that. Okay, and also for now you don't have to worry too much about the extends notation. Again, that's something to do with inheritance, which you will learn about in later course. All right, so that's what we will do. We'll simply use this common version over here for initializing a new empty list, and then gradually add in or remove elements from there. And for the method summary section, we got many methods over here. However, I will only look at some of them to use the example. And also you can refer to your weekly Java tutorial videos, week number 12. I also try to use the ArrayList to actually implement a birthday book application. You can also refer to it, okay? And then you can explore that, and then let me show you some screenshots about some methods, and we can go over them, go over their summary quickly. As I said, for each method, if you actually want to look at them in more detail, for example, you can simply click on that, and then they will show you more details over here, right? It's for your self-exploration for the API. All right, let me do another link quickly. Another link I want to show to you. There is an extra tutorial video which I recorded earlier. Not this semester, but earlier, but it's still very relevant to your study. So if you click on that over here, you can see this is actually one single video, just a little bit more basics about ArrayList. You can think about it, it's more like an extra explanation, extra intuition you can learn. Okay, I'll leave that to you, to your self-study. All right, let me move away these two pages, and then let's now look at some methods quickly. And the method I want to go over with you are these. You can look at the slides, but now let me switch to iPad quickly. Okay, let's talk about these methods quickly, and then we'll talk about it. We'll use them. First of all, when you look at the ArrayList class over here, the class declaration includes some so-called generic parameter. In principle, in general, the class declaration can include as many generic parameters as necessary. Usually they are separated by comma. So in the case of the ArrayList, we only got one generic parameter called E. And then you will see E is actually mentioned in some of the parameter types or some of the return types in the method summary. Let me show to you quickly. Okay, you can see here, for example, you can see E, right? So you can see we got E over here as the return type, E over here as a return type, and also here E as the parameter type, and that's it. Okay, that's as far as my examples can show. In the case of the hash table, we actually got two generic parameters, which will be K and V. K for keys and also V for values. That's something we'll look at. And you can think about the E here actually indicates about the type of elements. However, what should be the type of the elements? You can think about ArrayList is like an array. So the type of the elements in the types of the elements in the ArrayList should be homogeneous. They should be the same type. So Java actually allows the generic parameter for you to actually specify what type of elements you want to store in this particular ArrayList you are declaring. That's something I'll show to you. Okay, I'll give you one example right away. Let's say this. If I actually say ArrayList over here, if I want to declare, right? First of all, I say ArrayList, and then angle brackets. When I use it, I am required to actually instantiate the type E by some actual type. So the actual type basically would just be some existing class. Either the class maybe from some other Java library class, or it could be some class that you declare by yourself. For example, if I say ArrayList, can we just imagine that we actually got maybe person? Let's say person or two-dimensional point, right? So there's a person is actually a class we declare ourselves in our Java projects. So if I say ArrayList person, and then I can say list. So I got a list of person. And then I'm going to say it's assigned to a new object of type ArrayList, right? You can see the notation is pretty much familiar to you. Okay, you just found this some details you have to attend to. So now here it will just be ArrayList of also person, right? Every elements in the ArrayList is going to store the address of some person objects, right? And then the constructor will just be the empty parameter version over here. It's really important for you to see that. You can think about here, E over here is the declaration of some generic parameter, which is part of the class declaration. And if you can just recall over here, so let me just go bring you back to this particular API page. If you look at that over here, if you go scroll all the way to the top, you can see when we declare this particular class, we say class ArrayList. And this is the declaration of some generic parameter e, which will be used to denote the type of every element in the array list. However, for you as a user, every time when you want to declare some variable of type ArrayList, you must instantiate this variable, this type variable over here by some concrete type, some existing class. In this case, person, which I just showed to you, right? Okay, let me just go back here. And then you should think about the person over here. So this here is about instantiation. Instantiation of E by person. Right? You can see the E over here is really the E I'm talking about over here, right? Okay, so hopefully you can see the connection here. All right, and then the consequence of that would be for this particular list, every occurrence of E, which we can see in the API, they should be replaced by just person. And also person over here, and also person over here. Let's look at one example here. For example, you can see in this particular method, let's say add. Okay, so now the parameter type would rather than E, because for this particular list, we have already instantiated the E by person. So that means the argument type, the parameter type should be a person objects. Okay, rather than E, because E is kind of unknown. So for the purpose of API specification, you can simply put E. However, at the runtime, when you actually try to actually run this particular list, so elements in that particular list, really have their type depending on what you instantiate it to be. All right, and then you can see there's a return type. One thing you can note, if you compare with the API for the math class, you can see we don't have static anymore. So that means all the classes over here are non-static, right? Something you can say, you can observe right away. So you can see all the classes over here, all the methods over here are non-static, every one of them. Okay, and also you can see the return type over here. You can see we got, let's see, accessor. So what are the accessor? Integer, non-void, Boolean, non-void, Boolean, and also E, in this case person, and also Boolean, integer, right? And also E, and also person, right? So the only mutator we have is this particular method for modifying the states of the list, the context objects. All right, let's now go over the method one by one quickly. So here we got size is going to tell us how many elements are there in this list, pretty much like an array.length, similar to that. Okay, but notice that it's a method call, so you must put empty pair of parentheses over here. And then we want to add. So now in this particular case for the list, we're going to add a person into the list, and then notice that to the end of the list. So here to the end. So now, if you're using the array list, unlike using the primitive array that you did in the previous labs and also tutorials, you don't really need another extra counter like a number of elements in the list. You don't need that anymore. However, it depends on how we ask you to do in the labs or in the test. If we say that you can use library classes, in that case, using an array list does not require an extra counter. However, if we require you to actually still use the primitive array, then you definitely still need an integer counter, right? Just make that distinction clearly. All right, this an overloaded version over here. Let me make a notes over here. So you can see these two methods over here. Okay, these two. So these are method overloading, right? Overloaded. Okay, I believe it's only 1D. Overloaded methods, or method overloading. Right, you can see here the same name for the methods, but the parameter types are different. One is E, the other one is integer, and also E, right? They're different. And of course, in this particular case, the E here is also person for that for this particular list. If you create another list, let's say list number 2, but you actually instantiate person rather than person, maybe instantiate it into, let's say, string. In that case, the E will be replaced by a string. So it really depends on what you commit the type into when you declare the variable. Okay, let me also highlight this over here. All right, and then we also have some very useful method over here. We can say contains over here. It basically try to return true or false, right? You can see return type is Boolean, whether or not a particular object exists in the array list over here, right? You might be wondering why this is not E over here, and by simply put objects. Object is simply just a class, a very special class in Java, and we said that it's the superclass of every class. But don't worry too much about this notion about superclass over here. It's something to do with inheritance, and we will only speak about it when we get to the second year. But for now, you can think about just any objects, any object type will be okay. Okay, and then it's going to return true if it contains the elements, arguments value over here. Otherwise, it returns false. And we can also remove some elements from a particular index, right? For example, if we got, let me just show to you quickly. If you got an array list, I will simply just visualize array list like an array. Let's say if you got, for example, here 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's say if I want to remove an index 2, what that does is over here is going to, first of all, it's going to remove this particular elements conceptually, and then it's going to also re-index all the remaining elements. So we got 0, 1, and also this will be 2, and this will be 3, right? This will be 2, and this will be 3. So that's conceptually how you can trace the code, right? Exactly how it is done is kind of up to the Java API developers' contribution for their implementation. All right, and then let's now look at remove another one. Okay, so here the remove, rather than passing some integer index, you can actually pass some objects over here. So what that will do is it's going to remove the first occurrence. The first occurrence. For example, if it happens that the element actually appear twice, let's say here and also here in the list, because the list might allow some duplicates. In that case, you will only remove the first one. Okay, it will be as if removed from index 1 in this case, right? All right, and also you can check to see where a particular element is. You can find out index of. And don't forget, indices start at 0 for array list. That's something we'll see one example together. And then finally, so this one just to get the elements at a particular index, right? So this is very analogous to, for example, if you got an array and then you simply want to say index. It's very similar. Okay, and of course, for primitive array, in order to implement this particular method, you will need to write a loop in order to find out whether or not actually you need to find a loop to find out where exactly the object is. But in the case of array list, it's already implemented for you. So it really depends on what we ask you to do.